What if a single vision could shatter everything you believe? In the desert, Moses, a broken man, saw a flame that did not consume, a mystery that tore the veil of reality, a secret that made his heart tremble. Today, you will unveil this truth that changed everything. Like and subscribe to keep this flame alive, guiding you beyond the desert. Do not turn your back. Do not close your eyes, because what is coming will set your soul on fire forever. Have you ever been in a desert? It's not just a place of sand and heat, but a desert within yourself, a void where dreams wither, where hope seems like just a mirage. It was exactly in that place, dry, forgotten, brutal, that Moses, an ordinary man, a shepherd with no future, found something no human heart could imagine. A flame that not only defied logic, but defied destiny itself. Moses was not a prophet. He was not a king. He was no one the world would notice. He was a fugitive, a man carrying the weight of a dark past, a murder in Egypt, a life left behind. He thought his time was over, that his story was written. But then, on top of a forgotten mountain, something happened. Something that made the ground beneath his feet tremble. Something that made the sky seem small. A bush, a simple bush, but it burned and was not consumed. Why there? Why at that moment? Why him? Just an ordinary shepherd in the middle of nowhere, staring at a fire that did not obey the laws of nature. Science may try to explain the fire. History may try to rationalize the miracle. But what Moses saw in that flame was not just a phenomenon. It was a calling, a coded message written in fire that crossed centuries to reach you. Yes, you. Because the burning bush is not just a story from the past. It is a living truth, a flame that does not go out. And if you are watching this now, it's because that flame is calling you. But what was that fire? What did Moses really see? And why, thousands of years later, does that vision still have the power to change everything? Have you ever felt something like that? A moment when the world seems to stop, as if something greater is trying to speak to you. At that moment, Moses was no longer just a shepherd. He was a man before the divine, a man before a mystery that could not be ignored. And here is the truth that will make you shudder. What Moses saw in that bush was not just for him, it was for all of us. A secret hidden in the flames, a message that can set your soul on fire or leave you forever in the desert. But be careful. Once you begin to unravel this mystery, there's no turning back. So, what was that fire? What made Moses fall to his knees? And, more importantly, what does it have to do with the emptiness you feel? With the dreams you buried, with the life you think you lost? Stay with us, because what comes next will reveal the enigma of the burning bush, ... And maybe, just maybe, the secret to reigniting your own flame. Have you ever wondered why extraordinary things happen in the most unlikely places? In the middle of nowhere, where the sand swallows dreams and silence suffocates hope, an ordinary bush, small, insignificant, became the stage for one of the greatest mysteries in history. A fire that burned but did not destroy. A fire that did not obey the laws of nature. Why there, in that forgotten desert? Why such a common plant? And above all, why was Moses, a man seemingly destined for oblivion, chosen to witness this? Let's pause for a moment and think. Fire consumes. Fire destroys. That's how the world works. Dry wood, fragile leaves. Everything turns to ash in minutes. But this bush, ... it defied everything. The flames licked its branches, danced furiously, but nothing disintegrated. Nothing turned to dust. It was as if the fire was alive, breathing, speaking. And Moses, standing there with his staff in hand and his heart racing, couldn't look away. He knew he was standing before something greater, something that couldn't be explained, something that was not just a trick of nature. Science has tried to explain this. Some say it was a natural phenomenon, volcanic gases perhaps, or a light trick in the desert. Others speak of hallucinations, of an exhausted man seeing what he wanted to see. But these explanations crumble when you face the truth, because that fire was not just fire. It was a sign, a portal, a message written in flames that crossed time from the desert of Horeb to this exact moment to you. And the question that won't leave your mind now is, what was in that fire that made Moses fall to his knees? What did he see that left him speechless? To understand the enigma of the bush, we need to return to what it represented. In the ancient world, fire was more than heat. It was power. It was purification. It was the presence of the divine. But this fire was different. It did not consume. It did not destroy. It shone with an intensity that defied logic, as if saying, "I am more than you can comprehend." And Moses, a man who knew pain, guilt, failure, stood face to face with something he could not ignore. He heard a voice that did not come from the wind, nor from the sand, nor from his own heart. A voice that echoed from the center of that impossible fire. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." That's what he heard. Holy ground. In the middle of the desert, where nothing grows, where life seems impossible, that dry piece of land became sacred. Why? Because the bush was not just a burning shrub. It was a portal to the divine, an invitation to something greater, a sign that even in the most unlikely places, something extraordinary can happen. And here's what will make you stop and think. If a common bush in a forgotten desert can carry the presence of God, what does that say about you? About the driest places in your life? Think about it. Have you ever been in a personal desert? A moment when everything seemed lost, where the future was just sand and silence. What if, in this exact moment, a flame was waiting for you? Not a fire that destroys, but a fire that illuminates. A fire that reveals. Moses was not prepared for what he saw. He did not ask for it. But when he approached that bush, something changed. He was no longer just a shepherd. He was a man with a purpose. And what if the burning bush was not just a miracle for Moses, but a message for all of us, a message that is waiting to be deciphered? Here is the first revelation that will make you rethink everything. The burning bush was not just a phenomenon. It was a symbol of the divine presence that defies the laws of the world. A fire that does not consume, but transforms. A fire that does not explain, but invites. Moses saw something that made him stop being a fugitive and start being a liberator. But what exactly did he see? What was in that fire that made him take off his sandals, fall to his knees, and hear a voice that would change his life forever? And, more importantly, what would you see if you were standing before that bush? To answer these questions, we need to look closer. We need to dive into the story of a man who did not want to be chosen, but who could not escape the calling. Because the enigma of the bush is just the beginning. What comes next will show you why Moses, a man as ordinary as you or me, was transformed by that fire, and why you can be too. The burning bush was a mystery, a flame that defied the impossible. But to understand what it truly meant, we need to know the man who saw it. Moses, not the leader history has enshrined, but the man he was before. A man who did not believe in himself. A man who carried the weight of a mistake that marked him forever. Because, before the bush, before the fire, before the calling, Moses was just a fugitive. A man who thought his life was over. Moses was not a hero. He was a man of flesh and blood, like you and me. He grew up among the palaces of Egypt, but he never belonged to them. He was Hebrew, but also a stranger among his people. And on that fateful day, when his anger exploded and his hands took a life, he lost everything. His identity, his security, his future. He fled to the desert of Midian, leaving behind the man he could have been, or so he thought. Have you ever felt like your story was over? That a mistake, a choice, a moment stole everything you could have been. Maybe you lost a dream, a job, a person. Maybe you are in your own desert, where life seems just a shadow of what it could have been. Moses knew that feeling, spent years in Midian, tending sheep, living a simple, forgotten life. He thought the desert was his punishment. That God, the world, life had turned their backs on him. But then, something changed. At the top of that mountain, in a moment that seemed ordinary, Moses saw something he could not ignore. A bush on fire, but that was not consumed. He could have turned his back. He could have told himself it was just a trick of the light, a heat mirage. But something inside him, maybe a spark of hope, maybe a void he couldn't explain, made him take a step forward. And then another, and another. Until he was there, before the fire that did not destroy, hearing a voice that came from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. These words were not just a command, they were a revelation. At that moment, Moses realized he was not before an ordinary bush. He was before God himself. And God did not choose him by chance. He did not choose a king, a priest, a warrior. He chose a broken man, a man who had failed, a man who doubted himself. Why? Because the burning bush was not just a miracle. It was a mirror. Think about it for a second. What would you see if you looked into a mirror that showed not just your face, but your soul, your doubts, your fears, your buried dreams? When Moses looked at that fire, he did not just see flames. He saw who he was and who he could be. The burning bush was an invitation to leave the desert behind, to abandon guilt, to embrace a greater purpose. And here's what will make you pause. That invitation was not just for Moses, it is for you. Have you ever felt something pulling you? A quiet voice, almost inaudible, whispering that there is more for you. Maybe you have ignored it. Maybe you have told yourself it's too late, that you're not good enough, that your mistakes define who you are. But the burning bush says otherwise. It says that no matter how broken you feel, no matter how far you have run, there is a flame waiting for you. A flame that does not consume, but transforms. Moses doubted. He argued. He said to God, I am nobody. I don't know how to speak. I am not worthy. But the fire did not accept his excuses. The voice from within the flame said, I will be with you. And here's the truth that will make you rethink everything. Moses' calling was impossible. He, a fugitive, would face Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the world. He, a shepherd, would lead an enslaved people to freedom. But the burning bush was not about what Moses could do. It was about what God could do through him. Here's the revelation that will hit you like thunder. The fire of the bush was a mirror of Moses' soul. It showed who he truly was, not a fugitive, not a failure, but a man chosen for something greater. And that fire did not go out. It still burns. It burns for you, for me, for anyone who has ever felt lost in the desert. Because Moses' calling was not just for him. It was a calling for all of us. A calling to look beyond our mistakes, beyond our doubts, and see the purpose that is waiting to be awakened. But what does that calling really mean? How could such a common man, so full of flaws, respond to something so great? And what does that have to do with you? With the deserts you face? With the dreams you think you've lost? To understand this, we need to go deeper. We need to discover the secret hidden in that fire that does not consume. Because the burning bush is not just a story, 'tis a promise. The burning bush called Moses. It challenged him to leave behind the man he was, a fugitive, a shepherd, a man trapped in his doubts. But what was in that fire that changed him so deeply? What made him look at himself and see, not a failure, but a purpose? To understand this, we need to look beyond the miracle. We need to unveil the secret of the fire. It's a secret that is not just about Moses, but about each one of us. a secret that can set your soul ablaze and turn the desert of your life into holy ground. In the ancient world, fire was more than light or heat. It was a symbol of the divine. It was power. It was purification. It was the presence of something greater. But the fire of the bush was different. It did not consume, did not destroy. It shone with an intensity that defied the laws of nature, as if saying, "I am eternal. I am beyond." And when Moses looked into those flames, he did not see just fire. He saw the very presence of God, a God who did not need temples or altars, who could appear in an ordinary bush in a forgotten desert. A God who chose to speak to a man who did not believe in himself. "I am who I am." These words, spoken from the heart of the fire, were not just a name. They were a revelation, an invitation, a promise. God was saying to Moses, "I am the source of everything. I am the life that does not fade. I am the power that transforms." And the secret of the fire begins here. That fire was not just in the bush. It was in Moses. It is in you. Yes, you. Because the burning bush is not just a story from the past. It is a living truth, a flame that burns inside each one of us, waiting to be awakened. Think about it. When was the last time you felt something greater inside you? A spark of hope, a flash of courage, a desire to be more than you are. Maybe you felt it in a moment of silence, in a sleepless night, in a decision that changed your life. That spark is the same fire Moses saw. Not a fire that destroys, but a fire that illuminates. A fire that reveals who you really are. Because the secret of the fire is this: it was not just in the bush, it is within each one of us, waiting to be ignited. Science can explain ordinary fire. It can measure heat, calculate combustion. But this fire, it defies all logic. It does not consume, because it is the essence of creation. It does not destroy, because it is the force of transformation. When Moses looked at the bush, he saw more than flames. He saw the potential that God had placed within him. A potential that did not depend on his strength, his skill, his past. A potential that came from something greater. And here is what will make you stop and rethink everything. That same potential is in you. Have you ever wondered why some people overcome the impossible? Why, even in the middle of the desert, they find the strength to keep going? It is because inside each of us there is a flame that does not go out. A flame that does not depend on circumstances, talents, or perfection. It is the flame of the divine, the same that burned in the bush, the same that transformed Moses from a fugitive into a liberator. And that flame is burning in you now, even if you don't see it, even if you have forgotten that it exists. But here is the truth that will strike you like lightning. That flame does not light itself. Moses had to take a step. He had to approach the bush, take off his sandals, hear the voice. He had to choose to respond to the calling, even when he doubted himself. And you, what is stopping you from taking that step? What is keeping you in the desert when there is a fire waiting to transform your life? Because the secret of the fire is not just that it exists, it's that it demands a response. Here is the revelation that will change everything. The burning bush is a metaphor for the divine potential within you. A fire that does not consume, but transforms. A fire that does not judge, but invites. Moses saw that fire and discovered that he was not just a shepherd, not just a fugitive. He was a man with an eternal purpose. And you? What do you see when you look inside yourself? Because that fire, that presence, that promise is not just on a distant mountain. It is within you, waiting to be awakened. But how does that flame turn into action? How could Moses, a man full of doubts, respond to a calling that seemed impossible? And what does that mean for you, for the challenges you face, for the giants that seem too big? To discover this, we need to go beyond the fire. We need to see what happens when that fire meets a heart willing to say yes. Because the story of the bush does not end with Moses standing before the flames. It begins when he decides to act. The burning bush lit a flame in Moses, a fire that revealed who he truly was. Not a fugitive, not a failure, but a man with a divine purpose. But that fire was not just a promise, it was a challenge. Because the calling Moses received was not simple, it was not safe, it was impossible. God said to him, "Return to Egypt, face Pharaoh. Free my people." And Moses, a man who had spent years hiding in the desert, had to face the greatest empire in the world. A man who doubted himself had to face the impossible. And here is the question that will make you stop. What would you do in the face of such a calling? Think about it. Pharaoh was not just a king. He was considered a living god, the ruler of an empire that enslaved millions, that built pyramids with the sweat and blood of entire peoples. And Moses, he was a shepherd, a man who stuttered, a man who carried the guilt of a crime. He said to God, "Who am I to do this? I am not strong enough. I am not eloquent. I am not worthy." But the fire of the bush does not accept excuses. The voice from within the flames replied, "I will be with you." And that promise changed everything. Moses did not want to go. He resisted. He argued. But the fire he saw in the bush was not just a vision. It was a force that pushed him beyond his doubts, beyond his fears. When he arrived in Egypt, he did not just face Pharaoh. He faced a system, an empire built on oppression, a giant that seemed invincible. And yet, he stood before the throne with nothing but a staff and a promise. "Let my people go." How did he find the courage for that? How could such an ordinary man face the impossible? Have you ever faced a giant in your life? Maybe it's not a king on a throne, but something that feels too big. It's a fear that paralyzes you, an obstacle that seems insurmountable, a battle you think you cannot win. Maybe it's a debt that suffocates you, a broken relationship, an illness that haunts you, or a dream that feels impossible. Moses knew that feeling. He knew what it was like to look at something so big and feel small. But the burning bush taught him a truth that changed everything. Power does not come from you. It comes from the fire that burns within you. Here is the revelation that will make you rethink everything. The burning bush was not just a miracle. It was a challenge. A challenge for Moses to look beyond his weaknesses, beyond his failures, and trust the flame that God had placed within him. When he faced Pharaoh, he was not alone. Every step he took, every word he spoke, was fueled by that fire that does not consume. And that same fire is in you. Yes, you. Because the giants you face are not greater than the flame burning within your soul. Think about it. What is the Pharaoh in your life? What is holding you back? What makes you say, "I can't, I'm not enough"? Because the secret Moses learned at the bush is the same one you need to hear now. You don't need to be enough. You just need to say yes to the flame that is already within you. Moses faced an empire with nothing but a staff and a promise, and he won. Not because he was strong, but because the fire of the bush was stronger. When Moses came down from that mountain, he carried more than a staff. He carried a mission. He faced Pharaoh, the plagues, the skepticism of his own people. He faced the impossible, not because he was special, but because he trusted in the fire he saw in the bush. And here is the truth that will make you tremble. That fire did not go out. It still burns. It burns for you, for the challenges you face, for the giants that seem too big. Because the call of the bush is not just to free a people, it's to free you. Here is the revelation that will hit you like thunder. The burning bush was not just a sign for Moses. It was a challenge for all of us. A challenge to face the impossible with the strength of a fire that does not consume. Moses freed a people because he believed in the promise of the fire. And you? What is the impossible you are being called to face? Because time is running. The flame is lit now. Will you ignore it, or will you respond to the call? But what happens when you say yes to the call? When you face the impossible and discover that the flame within you is stronger than any giant? To understand this, we need to go beyond the confrontation. We need to see what the burning bush really means for you, for me, for all of us. Because Moses' story does not end with victory over Pharaoh. It culminates in a revelation that will change everything you believe about yourself. The burning bush ignited a flame in Moses, a fire that led him to face the impossible, to challenge an empire, to free a people. But the story of the bush does not end with victory over Pharaoh, nor with the Red Sea parting. The true revelation of the burning bush goes far beyond a mountain in the desert, a man named Moses, a moment in the past. It is an eternal truth, a flame that never goes out, a promise that echoes to this day. And that promise is for you. When Moses looked at that fire, he saw more than flames. He saw the presence of a God who transforms deserts into sacred places, who chooses the broken to accomplish the impossible, who ignites a flame in every human heart. The burning bush was not just a miracle, it was a message. You are not alone. You are not bound to your mistakes, your fears, your deserts. Within you is a divine flame, a fire that does not consume but illuminates, a fire that does not destroy but builds. Think about it. How many times have you felt trapped in a desert? How many times have you thought your dreams were dead, that your failures defined who you are? The burning bush says something different. It says that no matter where you are, no matter how dry your desert is, there is a flame within you. A flame that God placed there. A flame that can turn your pain into purpose, your doubt into courage, your life into something greater. Moses was not special. He was like you and me. But he said yes to the call, and that yes changed everything. Here is the final revelation, the truth that will make you rethink everything. The burning bush is not just a story. It is an invitation for you to look within and find the flame that never goes out. An invitation to turn your desert into holy ground, your fears into courage, your dreams into reality. Moses responded to that invitation. He faced Pharaoh, crossed the sea, led a people. Not because he was perfect, but because he trusted in the fire he saw. And now, the question is, what will you do with that flame? Are you in a desert? Look within. There is a flame waiting for you. Are you facing a giant? Trust in the fire that does not consume. Do you think it's too late? The burning bush says it is never too late to respond to the call. Because that fire, that promise, that truth, is not just on a distant mountain. It is within you. And when you say yes to that flame, the impossible becomes possible. The desert becomes an oasis. Your life becomes a story of transformation. The burning bush was not just a moment. It was the beginning of a journey that Moses began and that you can continue. So rise up, take a step. Respond to the call, because the flame that burned for Moses still burns for you, and it never, ever goes out. The flame of the burning bush did not go out. It burned for Moses, transforming a fugitive into a liberator. It burned for a people, turning slavery into freedom. And now it burns for you. In every desert you face, in every giant that seems too big, there is a flame within you, ready to transform your story. But that flame does not shine alone. It grows when shared. So, what will you do with that flame? Don't keep this truth to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, someone who is in their own desert. Leave a comment below. Tell us, what is your desert? What is the giant you are facing, eh? And how is the flame of the bush calling you to act? Like, subscribe, hit the bell, and join us on this journey to keep this flame alive. Because the burning bush is not just a story, it is a movement. A call to transform deserts into oases, doubts into courage, lives into legacies. Your flame is lit. Now go and light up the world.